Welcome to the Keto podcast. Thank you for joining. I really hope you were here last week because we had the most amazing session with Shaw Summers. We couldn't cover it all, so he is back today. Welcome, Shaw Summers. Let's go. Can I just go back to the GLP-1s just for a second? Because for those people that are listening that are not entirely sure what we're talking about, GLP-1s are the weight loss injections that everybody is hearing so much about, and there is lots of them that are available. Obviously, if we go to somebody like yourself, Shaw, we know that we're getting the bona fide product, and that it's going to be monitored, and that we're going to get help along the way. It's not just going to be here's your injection, off you go. But what are the different drugs? Are there risks attached? How is it built up? Are they safe? Let's go into more detail about them. Yeah, what's the lowdown?
Or as they say, what's the skinny on the weight loss chart? So weight loss injections, yes, these came about originally as a byproduct of diabetic treatments. So as I mentioned before, we now understand that type 2 diabetes is a metabolic disorder that goes hand in hand with metabolic syndrome and is usually driven by putting on a bit of weight. You become what's called insulin resistant. And in order to reverse that insulin resistance and get control of your blood sugars, you need to either have more insulin, and we know that doesn't work. So we used to treat type 2 diabetes with insulin, and all that does is drive excess sugar into your fat cells and you get fatter. So anyone who's been a type 2 diabetic who's been on insulin will instantly tell you the number one side effect is you put on a load of weight, because the glucose doesn't magically disappear. It gets driven into your fat cells and you put on weight. So about 20 years ago, the drug companies were all looking for hormones that would reverse insulin resistance, and they came up with GLP-1. And the first drug that came out was liraglutide, Victoza, which was a treatment for diabetes, because lo and behold, you give it to people with type 2 diabetes and their insulin resistance reversed. So they were less diabetic. They could come off insulin. And guess what happened to all those patients? They lost weight as well. And after about 10 years, some bright spark went, I wonder what would happen if you give this to non-diabetics who were overweight, who also had blood pressure and high cholesterol and all the other things that obesity gives you, as well as diabetes. And lo and behold, non-diabetics who take Victoza lost weight and their cholesterol got better and their blood pressure got better. What a surprise. And so it became sold as a weight loss drug. And it got approved as a weight loss drug. And then we went through the various other evolutions of liraglutide, or Victoza. Victoza was a daily injection, which was a bit of a pain in the bum to do. Excuse the pun. It then turned into a once weekly injection, semaglutide, which was sold as Ozempic. Very good drug, once a week injection. Diabetics loved it because it controlled the diabetes, and guess what? They all lost weight, and they were like, whoa, double prizes. And the company, Novo Nordisk, were like, aha, so why don't we sell this as a weight loss drug? But in order to segregate the market, because they absolutely understood if they used Ozempic as a weight loss drug, the world demand for that would take it away from the diabetics who need it to survive. So they made exactly the same medicine and called it Wegovy. But Wegovy is for weight loss, Ozempic is for diabetes. And that way they could control the supply and demand. So the Ozempic is for the diabetics. Don't you dare give it for weight loss, because it's for the diabetics. And rightly so. You don't want diabetics running out of the medicine that's keeping them alive. The Wegovy was for weight loss, and it works really well. It's great stuff. But it's just GLP-1. And so Eli Lilly, clever company that they are, thought, there's another hormone that also reduces insulin resistance, and that's called GIP. What if we made our drug switch both of these things on, GLP-1 and GIP? And that is the latest one that we have, tirzepatide, Mounjaro. And it is a little bit better than Wegovy in the trials that have been published. It's not massively better. It's not twice as good. It's just a bit better because it's affecting two hormones. So that's where we've got to at the moment. There are drugs out there in development that do three hormones. And I'm sure we'll see more and more of these things, which step at a time, we're getting closer and closer to the thing. What is it that surgery does that's so successful? Because surgery is still better and more durable than injections. And there's still not a good, effective tablet alternative out there yet, but there might come one. But that we're getting close to understanding more fundamentally what is it that surgery is doing, because surgery doesn't just do one thing, and it's not just making your stomach small so you can't eat. It changes the metabolism, it changes the hormones, the regulation system in ways that we still haven't discovered yet, but it's clearly doing it, but we just don't know how. So that's the evolution and the different injectables that we have. And the latest one is Mounjaro. Side effects. The hormones that they're mimicking do change the way your digestive system works. So it slows down your digestive system. So some people can get a bit of reflux. Some people can get nausea and vomiting, especially if you go up the doses too high. Because it slows down your digestive system, you can develop gallstones. It's probably one of the commoner side effects. If you've been on the medication for long enough, you'll get gallstones. 1 in 15 of the population get them anyway. About 1 in 5 to 1 in 10 people on long-term GLP-1s will get them. And you might need your gallbladder out. If you're really unlucky, you might get pancreatitis, which commonest cause of pancreatitis is gallstones. That's not a nice thing to get. For two reasons. One, it's a nasty illness. Number two, if you get pancreatitis, you can't have GLP-1s anymore. It's a contraindication. You're not allowed. End of story. So that's it for your weight loss injection treatments. Your only options now are surgery. That's about the long and the short of what do the injections do. There's very few serious side effects. There's at this moment in time, and the drugs have been around 10 years, 20 years for Victoza. There's no long-term cancer risk, no long-term risk of thyroid cancer. We've just not seen it. So actually, these are very safe drugs.
Well, that's really positive, isn't it? But can I ask a question then? Now, I might be wrong. I mean, I'm no medical professional, but I understood from what I've read that when diabetics are taking Ozempic, they're taking a very, very, very small dose every week. When people are taking, whether it be Wegovy or Mounjaro for weight loss, they start on a small dose and then they build up. And from what I've read, I think Wegovy is 12.5 mil, and I think Mounjaro can go up to 15. Am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So is there any long-term research on the effects of that much of the drug being taken over a long period of time?
That's a good question. The dosage regimes aren't that different, if I'm honest. So that, yes, the upper doses of the weight loss medication are slightly higher, but they've done dose toxicity studies, and there's no increase in serious side effects for the weight loss doses over a longer period of time. And certainly, the experience of those patients who are in the earliest of trials is that there's no cumulative effect that's obvious. And, we've had diabetics on things like liraglutide for 15, 20 years now, constantly, and they're fine.
Even
So,
at the higher dose?
yeah, even at the
Okay.
high dose.
All right.
I think the biggest problem we have at the higher dose is that even on 15 milligrams of Mounjaro, which is, eye-popping dose, patients eventually say, my hunger's coming back.
Well, that kind of brings me to the next question as well, because I know that once you stop taking the injections, they stop working. We don't retain it in the body, do we? So they stop working. And obviously, if you're getting them privately, they're very expensive. Like you said, they're not rolled out yet on the national health. And even though they're talking about it, it's going to be years before people can get it. And providing people are getting drugs from the correct sources, they have to meet certain criteria. What are those criteria?
So for injectable medication, the criteria are you need a body mass index really over 30 to be worth it in the sort of balance of equations, not necessarily with an obesity-related illness, or if your body mass index is 28 with an obesity-related illness. So BMI 28 is not that overweight. It's like, a stone and a half, 2 stones overweight, but you've got blood pressure or high cholesterol or diabetes, then you're eligible to start these drugs. Now, there's an element of discretion about that. Body mass index is a bit of a crude measure. And if you're at, 0.1 below the line, no sensible doctor is going to say, actually, do you know what? You could do with it, because if we wait long enough, you'll go up, or you'll go out and go around the corner to a famous outlet of fast food, and you'll just eat yourself a little bit heavier and you can get the drug. So no sensible doctor is going to do that. But again, the most important thing is that you get advice from a doctor. And it only needs to be once. So you have a consultation with someone like ourselves from Streamline, and myself or one of my colleagues will have a sensible chat with someone who's interested in taking the medication, talk them through the pros and cons, the risks as they apply to the individual, because the risks are different for different people, and talk about the expectations, right? You're going to be on this for a few months, but that'll be enough, or you're going to need this forever. So factor in the cost of that at £200 a month, £300 a month, which, depending on the dose you're on, actually, if you're going to be on this for the next 10 years, you might as well have an operation, because it's half the price and you don't have to do injections all the time. So again, it's about having a sensible discussion, a one-off discussion with a professional who's going to talk you through it properly. And I can't emphasize that enough. It is really, really important, because there's very few providers out there who will do that. You'll do an online questionnaire and someone will review it, but you're not going to have a one-to-one. We do one-to-ones like this with all our patients. If you come through Streamline Weight Loss, you will get a one-to-one to talk about you and what you want this weight loss to do for you and how you want to achieve it. There's no hard sell. There's no, we want to sell you our favorite drug here because it's on special. Proper doctors don't do special offers. They do the right offer. We'll do what's right for you. But, it's a bit like asking a surgeon to do a cut price operation. Really?
Yeah, I'll just do half the oration then.
Yeah, great. Yeah. Okay, I'll cut a corner. I'll not plumb in one end properly. What are you asking for? It's a bit like taking your car to the garage and saying, don't do the brakes properly.
Yeah, or only do two of them.
Cheaply.
Yeah.
Yeah, only do a couple of the brakes,
Yeah, no, but I must admit, I've been amazed by the emails I've received from people who have told me stories. I'm thinking, this is just madness. One person, she said to me that she was looking to get surgery in Bulgaria. Her BMI was 24.3 or something, and he told her to go away, put on some weight, come back, and he'd do the surgery.
I know, but
I mean,
people are
it's mad.
desperate, and
Yeah.
they feel desperately lost with their weight. And the BMI might be 24 now, but it's been up to 28, and they don't want to go back there, and they're desperate. So that's where you come and talk to people like us, because we get it. We really understand what you're asking for and why. And I have operated on people down to a BMI of around 25, 26. But not because that's their highest weight, that's their lowest, and they don't want to go back to where they were at a higher weight. And I get that. And that actually is a justifiable clinical stance. Especially if they've got a family history of serious metabolic problems, or they've had metabolic problems. And, so it's about the individual. But people get desperate, and they will do desperate things to try and get control of their weight problems. And I have to say that we do at times see people in Streamline who we go, actually, I know you want to shortcut the waiting list and come and do this privately with us, but I'm really strongly advising you to go through the NHS, and I'll write a letter to your local NHS provider pointing out that you are eligible for this surgery and it's the right thing for you. And they hopefully will bump you up the waiting list. But, it's about looking after people, and that's what I enjoy doing. That's what we all do it for.
And that does
Certainly
come across. That really, really comes across. And I listen. I understand the desperation as well as anybody, because, and I've probably never told you this before, but I'm going to tell you a true story. When I did come to you, when I was having problems with the band, I couldn't at that point even swallow my own saliva. I would become very ill with it. And you examined me and you said, okay, look, I'm going to take out the band. And before you'd finished the sentence, I went into a panic. Before you'd said, and I'm going to replace it with, I went into panic mode.
Yeah.
All I heard was, he's going to take out the band. Oh my God, he's going to take out the band. Right. And then I think you saw something in me. I said, look, I'm not going to take it out now. I'm just going to release it a bit. And I'm like, okay. And you sent me outside to the waiting room and you said, right, I just want you to drink a bit of water. Let me know how you get on. And I went out there and I sipped on water and I couldn't get it in. And my head was going, run, get out of here. Just go now. And as I picked up my bag in flight mode, you opened your door and you said to me, you can't get it in, can you? Oh, no. So honestly, if that's not desperation, I don't know what is. I was so terrified.
I get it.
Yeah.
I completely get it. And I would never, without really good reason, I would never leave someone, thinking that the world's ending because they're one thing that's helped them conquer this beast of obesity is going to be taken away from them. It's like people who have a bypass and, very occasionally we might have a problem with a bypass, or they've had it done in elsewhere abroad, and they come to the UK and go, I can't swallow anything. And we take a look at the bypass and it's like, it's not like a bypass I've ever seen or done. We're going to need to redo this. And they're absolutely panic stricken. They're going, no, don't take away the bypass. And we're going, no, we have to do something with this one because, in a year's time, you'll be stick thin, but really ill. So you've still got to eat. You've still got to enjoy food. And most people with weight loss surgery still enjoy their food. It's nice, but it's not something that they go hunting for. But yeah, it is a very odd thing. We've developed a society, especially with social media and the internet, where perfection is thought to be the norm. And everybody's got to have a perfect body and a perfect shape and a perfect diet and a perfect this. And it's just like, what are we teaching our kids? No. The world ain't like that. And actually being good is good enough.
Yeah.
It's
anyway, what is the definition of perfect?
Well, we don't know.
Exactly.
Actually.
Perfect for one person is not the same perfect for another
Yeah,
person. You know,
yeah.
we're striving for something that has no tangible thing to grab onto. But yeah, you're right. I just want to ask you another question about BMI and GLPs. I know a lot of people that have written to me said they don't care how much it costs. They're going to stay on it for life if that's what it takes. They don't believe me when I tell them, but they're going to stop working at some point, even if you're on them for life. They seem to not believe, or they don't want to believe that. But how will they still get hold of them? And let's just not talk about for a minute the ones that are going to just do whatever it takes to get hold of them and go online or what have you. From normal sources, people like yourself, obviously when they do lose weight, their BMI is going to go down, and it is going to go down to a lower level than required to continue with injections. How can they?
You've just, yeah, you've just hit upon the absolute grey area of how low is too low. So, at our practice at Streamline Weight Loss, we will prescribe down to a BMI of 22. But once your BMI hits 22, we say to patients, that's far enough. Going lower than that with medication, the risk benefit balance is not there. And actually, you're now going to get down to a stage where forcing your body lower is actually going to be detrimental to it. And a BMI of 22, it's plumb in the middle of the range of normal. This is normal weight. Why do you want to be subnormal weight? So we have to be reasonable about it. And I think people who push themselves down to BMI 18, 19 to be skinny with medication are running a risk because they're driving their body down metabolically below a level that is comfortable. So they're actually stressing the system. And secondly, the providers that actually prescribe it to people to get down to that are running the risk of losing their licenses because, the Pharmaceutical Council and the General Medical Council would look really dimly if the patient came to grief with bad pancreatitis and their BMI was 19 and they found that you'd been prescribing them Mounjaro. Actually the GMC might say, that's unethical practice. You're not a doctor for a while. Go think about it. So I think that there is an element of, what are you trying to achieve? And if you're not comfortable in your skin at BMI 22, maybe you need to talk to someone about that.
Yeah, because that leads us into the other contentious issue of people with eating disorders
Yeah.
who are able to get hold of these drugs. And then at that point, in my opinion, these drugs are not helping them to become healthy. They're enabling them to become more unhealthy. And that's very sad and scary that people
It is.
do that. Sorry, that providers will kind of let them do that.
Well, this is the problem of being robust in your practice. And it's why we do face-to-face consults, because you can see by someone how they're reacting to your questioning or their responses, their sort of their descriptions of what they're struggling with. I'm a professional. I can pick that up in 30 seconds where you're coming from. And so it's not about stopping people from getting treatment that they feel they want. It's about helping direct them to the best way forward for themselves. So we do treat people with eating disorders with injectables. Occasionally we'll do surgery on people with eating disorders, but it's got to be part of a holistic package of care. It's like, right, so we need to address the eating disorder, but we'll treat you as well, so that you're not in this constant cycle of love, hate food, binge, stop, binge, vomit. We can deal with that. There are ways of helping you get over it, but you've got to accept that help is not just an injection or an operation. It's a package of measures. So we have psychologists in Streamline, we have weight therapists, we have specialist dietitians who deal with this specific area of dietetics. So it's not just, eat healthy, your 5 a day. It's about weight loss dietetics. It's about maintaining weight loss, healthy eating, and the evolution and rehabilitation of your diet after your treatment. So it's about understanding that it's a complex problem, as I said, and that your needs might not be simple, like one jab. It might be complex, like actually you need some psychology and you need a bit of dietetic help to get your head around what is food and what is not food, and the treatment as well.
Yeah, and it's interesting. You said something earlier about that you actually did write a referral letter to an NHS for a patient to the NHS to say, look, this patient really does qualify for surgery on the NHS, which is fantastic. And I know that that in your career you're quite active in the development of NHS specialised services. Can you tell us a bit about that and how it's going and what we can expect in the future from the NHS, and how you see maybe what your view is on the place of the NHS in the field of obesity?
Obesity is probably the major health challenge for our generation and the next generation in terms of the nation's health, probably the world's health, if we're honest. And unless the NHS has a part to play in managing this, obesity is going to break the NHS. It's breaking it already. So over half the population are overweight or obese. At least 10% of the population are big enough that they classed as obese, and about 5% are severely obese. In other words, they're bad enough that they really need treatment. That means that if you come into hospital with any illness, anything you like, broken leg, heart attack, lung infection, it's harder to treat. You're harder to look after. The illness is more severe. It takes longer to recover. It's more expensive. And that expense we all pay for. People stay in hospital longer. I can't do as many operations because the beds are all full of people who are taking longer to get over stuff. And it's that thing that I'm busy trying to explain to health ministers and politicians and anyone who will listen. We have to deal with obesity. It's not dementia, because actually obesity increases your chance of dementia. It's not all these end illnesses like heart disease. We've got to deal with the obesity right at the beginning. So education, teaching kids what is food, how to eat, that sugar is not a food, sweets are not food. Sweets are for birthdays and Christmas. That's it. The confectionery industry will hate me for this. Hello, British Sugar Association, not my friend. But, I would triple VAT on all those things tomorrow, because they're the cause of all of this. And they are not. They don't show that you love your kids when you buy them sweets and treats and stuff. It shows how much you disregard them. Would you buy them, a couple of grams of Coke or give them a couple of joints to smoke? No, you wouldn't. Would you buy your 6-year-old a packet of cigarettes? No, you wouldn't. So why are you giving them sweets? What are you doing? You're hooking them on a substance that's going to ruin their lives. So, it's about education. They teach the public how to eat, what to eat, why. It's about spotting the illnesses at an early stage and giving people the tools to deal with them, whether that's injectable medication, lifestyle, opportunities to reverse those early stages while they're still reversible. And in those who are too far gone, the obesity's big enough and been there for long enough that the regulation system is bust, then accepting that treatment is better than waiting until they have a stroke, waiting until they've had a heart attack, waiting until they fall down the stairs because they're 20 stones and they've broken their leg and they're going to be in traction for 6 months because there's no other way of treating this. All these kinds of things. So the NHS needs to be part of this. Unfortunately, the NHS is broke, and broke financially and broke administratively. It's just bust. So when I try to influence services so that we do more of this surgery, they haven't got any money and they won't listen to this. Well, if we do the surgery now, you save money later. The surgery pays for itself in 3 to 5 years. If you're diabetic, the surgery pays for itself within 2 years. In the NHS, privately, it's about the same. It will pay for itself. You eat less, you're healthier. The only thing you've got to spend on is new clothes. Go figure. It actually saves you money. You become a cheap date, essentially. And the surgery will pay for itself. You don't, yes, you might need to save up for it up front, but within 3 to 5 years, it's paid for itself and you're healthier. What's wrong with you? Why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah, and surely the cost of rolling out weight loss drugs for the NHS is still going to be cheaper than what it's costing them today with the effects of obesity on the national health system.
You would think that's the way they should work, but it's about this year's budget, and there is nothing left in this year's budget. So the only way I've come across that might work with the NHS is that we say, look, each year you will make a dent in the cardiology budget and in the orthopedic budget and in the diabetes budget. And their budgets are about, well, the diabetes budget's about 10, 15 billion. The orthopedic budget's about 5 or 6 billion. And the cardiology budget about the same. Can we have 0.5% of that, each of those budgets? They won't miss it because actually it's a tiny reduction in their budget, but we can put it to really good use because we'll stop patients even going there.
Yeah, exactly. They won't miss it because they won't need it.
Correct. And they're just going, okay, you've got a point there, but we've now got to prize it out of the tight grip of the other specialists who are going, no, that's our money. And we're going, we're all treating the same patients. It's not your money, it's the patient's money. It's proving a bit difficult to get it out of their hands.
You do like a challenge, don't you? I mean, how far have you taken it? Is this sort of West Streeting level and beyond, or?
I'm not sure it's got to the health minister's desk yet. We tried it with the previous ones and got nowhere because they're not listening. And they still think that severe obesity is a choice. People have chosen to be like that. Bizarre. No one's ever chosen to be really, really overweight or have really severe metabolic illness. No one chooses to have type 2 diabetes because they've put on 3 stone. What kind of a choice is that? You're like that because something's making you hungry that shouldn't make you hungry. If you're overweight, your appetite should be 0. If you overfeed a wild animal, it stops eating. You can offer it food, it won't eat until its weight goes down. The only time you find big wild animals is in a human zoo where they're fed human scraps and human foods, or pets. You talk to most vets, actually obesity is a serious problem amongst domesticated dogs and cats.
Yeah, but I find that attitude really sad because it kind of just goes back to an age-old stigma about obesity. And it just kind of proves that even at the highest levels, it still exists. They haven't changed their mindset. People still think that it just shows a complete disrespect and disregard for the obese population who are there by no fault of their own, because people still think, well, you didn't have to eat it. It's very narrow-minded.
I think stigma is still, unfortunately, very much alive and well, both amongst the general public, amongst a section of the healthcare professions, and certainly amongst some politicians and those in influence in health policy and even in the Department of Health and NHS England. And they fail to understand the complexity of obesity and the societal effects of stigma. And it's true to this day that there are things you can say about someone's weight that if you were to just exchange the word fat or obese for black or gay or any other word, you would be facing a criminal charge because that's not allowed. But you can say it about a fat person. We're not supposed to say that word, and I don't generally. Someone who's suffering with obesity, saying they're fat is a derogatory term now. We don't recognise that. But the stigma is there. It's the, treating them not as people, not as normal human beings. It's just not fair, not appropriate, shouldn't be allowed. And yet it's still accepted. And it's something that is gradually changing. The medical profession is changing. They are accepting this idea that obesity and metabolic derangement is an illness, and it's an illness that is manifest by people gaining weight when they don't want to, but they do, and that it needs treatment. It needs sympathy, just like any other illness. No one's asked for it. They don't want it. Can I help? Yes.
Yeah, well, let's hope we see some changes soon then, because especially with, in fact, maybe I'm being a bit optimistic, but I'm hoping that the major impact of the weight loss drugs and how they are always on the news and always on social media might make the powers that be wake up and realize, well, hang on a minute, maybe this is a much, much bigger thing than we realize, and we really do need to pay attention to it, hopefully.
I think that is a very valid point. And I, like you, am optimistic that anything that brings the epidemic of obesity that we have in this country and across the developed world is a real thing, and that it demands real attention. I think I temper it with a little pinch of salt that actually the drug companies do like to whip it up and put a real sort of, anyone can have these drugs, they're great, they work. Well, they do, but they're still drugs, they're still medication. And as I said before, you wouldn't dream of just buying over-the-counter anti-blood pressure medication or, angina medication because, I've read it on the internet, I want to try that one because, I don't like this angina, I think I'd like to get rid of it. You go and see a specialist. It should be the same for weight loss treatments. And there are good practices that will do that, not just ours. So, we have streamlined weight loss, which are for patients who want a one-to-one. But we also have an outlet for those who might already be on treatment, who've been through all that process. They just want to continue it. And we have Roxy and Rex is our other brand, which is just a supplier, but with that responsible background that if someone does need to talk, we're there to talk to them. We're there to advise. We're there to guide.
Oh, I have to say this has been fantastic. I could talk to you all day about all of these subjects. As you're talking, I've got so many more questions forming in my head. So I really, really hope that you will come back and be a guest again for me because it's been fantastic. In the meantime, I can honestly say, for all of the listeners, if they want to get in touch with you or Streamline, it's not Streamline Surgical anymore, it's Streamline...
It's both. Streamline Weight Loss as a brand, but Streamline Surgical, not just for the operations, that's just how we started. Or Roxy and Rex is our pharmacy brand.
Brilliant. Well, we're going to put all of that information in the show notes, so they will be able to contact you. They'll be able to reach out on social media and all the rest of it. Sure, this has been fantastic. I'm just aware that I've taken up so much of your time, but I genuinely could
Pleasure.
talk to you forever about this. Thank you so much. Thank you. And I know that the listeners are going to have taken away a huge amount from this.
For me, a person informed is a person who can make good choices, and life's about making the best choice you can with the information you've got. So I'm very pleased to have been able to do that for you, Mel.
Yeah.
And it's lovely to see you looking so well and doing great things. So
Thank
keep
you.
it off for definite.
Thank you so much. And I agree. Knowledge is power, guys. You heard it here. How amazing was that? Thank you again, Shaw. That was brilliant. Guys, I hope you took away as much from this episode as I did, because I tell you something, I've been around doing this for 21 years and I learned a huge amount. It's really good to know that the NHS are at least trying to come on board and that the conversation is going to keep going. And I know for a fact that Shaw is not going to give up on that. In fact, I think I might join him on the crusade. Remember, you can find all his detail in the show notes. And please do me a favour, if you enjoyed the show, leave a comment for me, because otherwise I'm never going to find out what you think. Have a great week, everyone.